Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my very last online public meeting for North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. I am Commissioner Zoe, and I'll be chairing this meeting. So the last meeting is held online, as you'll be able to view it at any time from last month. So let's go straight into the performance section, and I'll hand over to Damien. Hello, Damien.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thank you. I will just share my screen. And has that come up, Commissioner?
It has, thank you.
Thank you. So the performance pack this time covers the financial year 23-24. There are a couple of slides within the pack which are for the previous 3 months, but I'll indicate which those slides are as we go through. So, as normal, a summary of our performance. We've seen increased activity within prevention and an increase of 7% activity from the previous year. This equates to 4,854 home fire safety visits, which equates to 277 days of activity. Through the developments which we're currently undertaking within our station and district plans, our expectation is that we will see a further increase through this financial year of circa 30% within our prevention function. For the same period with protection, we have seen a decrease in activity of 8% on the same reporting period from last year. That being said, we do have higher than double the national average for our protection activity. The national average is 2 fire safety inspections per 100 known premises, and we were currently at the last data return at 4.1 inspections per 100 known premises. Our focus in protection is going to be far more to refine our approach, making sure that we're targeting the most appropriate premises. It still is lots of activity there, and I will come into further about protection later on in the slide pack.
Damien, can I just ask you a couple of questions on this one?
Certainly.
So good to see there's an uplift of 7% in the home fire safety visits. That's great. But I am a little bit concerned that there is quite a high proportion of visits declined by the occupier that are rated high or very high risk. Now, why is that? And the second question, Damien, is on the protection side, why has there been a decrease in the fire safety activity?
Yeah, certainly. So first of all, with prevention, we mirrored your concerns. So we have requested of prevention that they looked into why both the high and very high risk visits and in general why people were declining or we were unable to contact them. Our head of early intervention and prevention did a sampling of our previous ones, and there was some learning there around it that we need to actually put some more notes in the system to see why those were declined, but actually is an accurate reflection now of those. Some of them are because we're unable to make contact. That's for a number of reasons, because if they're very high and high, they may be in some care or in hospital, and we've not been able to contact them. What we do with those that come from referrals is that we have got comprehensive notes on each of those that are out of date for inspection, but for a visit, but some just do decline the visits, Commissioner, which obviously at a public meeting we would urge all people, you know, if it has been identified that you require a home fire safety visit, it's quite a short period of time it takes, and we'd urge people to engage with us to make sure that we can do that on their behalf. The second question with regards to protection, lots of work has happened with protection. We have been updating our data information through CFMIS to make sure that we've got accurate records of all businesses. As we move into this financial year and with the station and district plans, because we have looked across a wide range of all our activities, we're looking to increase activity more within prevention. That's why we're looking at an expectation of there will be an increase of 30% of our prevention activities. Within protection, it's less about numbers and it's more about getting into those premises that we really need to, based on risk. So I think even in the coming 12 months, we will see that figure. It won't rise, but as I've said, we put a lot of activity in that, and we do almost double what other fire and rescue services in England do with regards to protection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. With regards to response, we've attended 7,559 incidents this year. The largest proportion of those are still false alarms, but we have seen a decrease in fires and also false alarms. But we've seen a slight increase in our special service calls of 123. As you recall from the previous two OPMs, we were forecasting what we expected our incident rates to be. We've seen a 2% reduction in what we were anticipating through the incidents there from what were forecasted. With regards to availability, we've seen a decrease in the year on our overall fire engine availability of 5%, and for our on-call fire engines, there's been a decrease of 8%. We are looking to report fire engine availability more accurately. Currently, it's done on a system which is hourly based on one of our internal systems, and we're looking to change that so that we can move to a second-by-second availability status, which is on that status code, as it says there, which will give us a far more accurate reflection of what our availability is. Currently, if an appliance goes off for 5 minutes within the hour, it does actually show that it's been off for the full hour, which obviously we want to ensure everything that we're presenting is as accurate as we possibly can. And as you're aware, a huge amount of work is being undertaken by our on-call futures station manager and watch managers, and we're looking at all aspects of on-call to improve availability, and lots of work is happening nationally as well with that. With regards to our prevention activity, as we previously said, we looked into the reason why a number of the home fire safety visits had been declined, and we will continue to look at that trend as we move forward. Lots of work happening in prevention with regards to quality assurance and training, wider training of operational crews with that. And we also do training and engagement with partner agencies, and as you can see from the right-hand side, we've got currently 24 trained partners across York and North Yorkshire that do refer vulnerable and high-risk individuals into the fire service so that we can engage with them on prevention activities.
Damien, can I ask you a couple of questions on this slide, please?
Certainly.
So, how do you collect resident feedback to seek assurance of the quality of your home fire safety activity? And partner referrals, have we had an increase from partner referrals at all?
We have had, I think it's on one of the later slides, it does say how many we've had. I think it's 680 80 something, if I remember the slides, Commissioner, but it will be coming up, so I'll check my accuracy on that one with regards to the referrals. We do a number of quality assurance where we contact following a visit, but there will be looks to increase that. Our Director for Prevention and Protection, following the NYFRS report, where we got an area for improvement around both quality assurance and evaluation. So that is one area that we're looking to develop as much as we possibly can to ensure that we address that AFA, and also, more importantly, to ensure that the service is right for the communities of York and North Yorkshire.
Thank you.
So here are some of the inputs that we have on there. Some notable ones there. We've run youth engagement activity through our life courses, where we've had 25 young people successfully complete the 5-day intensive course. Also lots of work being undertaken with our fire bike teams, and they've been out and about around the county already, delivering those interventions. And as we're aware, as we come into the summer months, our county does get a lot of people come through and enjoy those rural roads. So lots of work with that. Other areas of business that we've done, we've successfully rolled out DBS checks across the organisation in response to legislative change. Across the organisation, staff and colleagues have really engaged with that legislative change, and we're well on the way to completing DBS checks for all those that need it. And finally, we've updated our fire standards surrounding safeguarding and prevention. Moving on to the next slide, at this meeting, we do a lot of information about home fire safety visits, quite rightly, and protecting people in their homes. But this is just a visual representation of some of the other great work that we've done over the past year, and that's both the prevention team and also operational crews with their prevention activities. With regards to protection, as we've said, we undertake lots of activity with regards to our consultations, which can be anything around new building consultations, fireworks storage, those sorts of consultations. We meet all those consultation timeframes, and that has been impressive this year because we have had an increase in statutory and non-statutory consultations of 43%, but we continue to meet them all within the reporting period that's asked for. Our unwanted fire signals, we've done a lot of work with that, and in previous OPMs we've discussed that and the actions that we're taking with businesses across the county, and we have seen a significant drop in the AFAs following the introduction of the new policy. This is a visual representation of the availability figures that we suggested earlier, showing the 5% fall in availability overall, and also that 8% reduction in availability of our on-call appliances.
Damien, can I ask you a question? Why is that? And is it a national trend as well?
There is a national trend, certainly with regards on call. We're doing lots of activity around that, and certainly I know in the last OPM we talked around the profiling around some of our on-call stations to make sure that any recruitment campaigns that we do are targeted as much as we possibly can for on-call members of staff. North Yorkshire, given our risk profile and the size of the county, we're always going to have a reliance on on-call members of staff, and they provide us with an amazing service. And as always, we would always shout and ask people to respond to those recruitment campaigns and offer that much needed service to their local communities.
And that's something that you'll be touching on in the presentation, won't it?
It is, yes. Yeah. Group Manager Long will cover that in his presentation. The current slide shows our incident count. As we said within the summary, we've had a slight reduction overall in our incidents. As you can see, I think not surprisingly, during the summer months is when we are at our busiest, and that is a consistent trend across the sector and across historic years of North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue activity. With regards to false alarms, as we've said, we've done quite a lot of work with false alarms, introducing the new policy and working with businesses across the county to ensure that we're supporting them, educating them to reduce the unwanted fire signals. And we have seen a reduction in that. And we've always had fairly positive statistics with regards false alarms, which are of a good intent nature, and false alarm malicious actuations, which has both have reduced by 28% and 62% respectively. With regards to our SSRI activity, this is where we go out to buildings and firefighters will go around the building and access risk information from the premises, which supports them if and when they need to attend in an emergency situation. This is an area of focus currently. We have, through our normal monthly performance management meetings, asked all district commanders to prioritise activity with regards to SSRIs to ensure all our high and very high risk sites have had an inspection and are in date to get that key information, which they will use if and when there was an emergency. And that concludes the performance presentation, Commissioner. I'll just open it for any further questions.
Just one more from me, Damien. Have you had to charge yet for any false alarms? Has anybody got to the stage where we've actually had to charge?
As far as I'm aware, and I'm looking at the Deputy Chief on screen, I don't think we've had to charge as yet, but we have taken people. It was that 5-stage approach, and we've taken people through that, but it's not got to the charging state as yet.
Okay, Matt, come in, please.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. No, we haven't as yet, but I think it's important to note and reflect on the positive feedback that we've had working with businesses to make sure that the education piece is done appropriately. So this is the last stage of the process. You know, this is around education, working with the communities, working with businesses to make sure that we don't have these false alarms in the first instance. So it's great that we're getting that feedback from those businesses.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, I don't think there's any further questions, so thanks very much, Damien. Right, so let's go on to the main presentation, and Damien, it's over to you and Ewan, and it's about service change programme.
Thank you, Commissioner. Group Manager Long will be sharing the slides, so apologies, I will have to ask him to move on, so it will be a case of next slide. I will give a brief introduction to the topic and then hand over to Group Manager Long that will take you through the body of the presentation. Ewan, would you mind moving on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So since the 2002-2003 pay dispute across the sector, I've heard it many times that we are in a period of unprecedented change within the fire sector. I would agree wholeheartedly with the fact that we have been involved in considerable change, but I think after 20 years, we can no longer say that it's unprecedented. There are a huge amount of external factors and external influences on fire services across England, some of which are on there now with national inquiries, reviews into culture, introductions of new fire standards, and certainly one of the largest catalysts for change has been NYFRS. That would be across the sector, and certainly within North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue following our last report. That was a huge catalyst for change within the organisation. Alongside these external influences, we have internal change through changes to governance structures, senior leaders within the organisation, and our greater collaboration with North Yorkshire Police and our shared enabling service. These have all influenced our change programme. Next slide, please. So what have we done? The Chief Fire Officer wanted a simplified organisational strategy. This would be built around delivering world-class basics and would be easy to understand for everyone in the organisation. It gives us the opportunity to fundamentally and critically review our core and statutory functions, and this back-to-basic approach has seen and will continue to see any unnecessary complexities that we have in our structure, our ways of working removed, and we will ensure that we address any challenges or issues before we move on. It's also included a redesign of our service structure. This is including supporting strategies that sit below this service strategy and plans that are scalable. Throughout this, we've instilled a new cultural direction and growth mindset within the organisation, which is founded upon values-based leadership. Are there any questions on that slide, Commissioner?
No, thank you.
Thank you. If we can move on, Ewan, please. So this is our delivery plan and change pipeline. The strategic leadership team worked with our programme and project managers when the new strategic leadership team was formed to capture all our RRM change initiatives and any other change initiatives that we wanted to bring in, so we could capture them in a programme-based and project-based methodology. The programme managers were brilliant because they managed to get us down from 36 must-do now priorities to 7 priorities that were immediate, but then being able to structure all our other activity over the coming years so that we're tracking them. We track them through our governance and meeting structures, through the Fire Change Board, and progress and milestones are tracked for all activity in the same way that we track our progress against the risk and resource model. Each one of these is supported by tactical plans, performance metrics, and an assurance framework. This allows us to measure performance, highlight good practice, and it allows us to focus our efforts on where improvement is needed most. Thank you, Ewan.
Can I just ask a question on that one,
Certainly.
please? So there seems to be a significant number of change projects there. So have you had to restrict the number of projects due to the cost and capacity within the teams at all, Damien?
We haven't. It hasn't impacted us undertaking any of the projects. I think what was apparent at the very start was a number of the projects that we needed to do had high interdependencies, and it was really important that we understood the sequencing of activities. I think we used the analogy at that meeting that it was really important that we pushed the right first domino to make sure that all the changes that subsequently came after that fell into place. So we were held to account very well by the programme and project managers, and they've done a great piece of work to ensure that effort wasn't duplicated, and we've got that clear time frame to achieve that organisational change.
Okay, thank you.
Our framework for change, so building upon the recommendations that we saw come out of the independent review of culture within London Fire Brigade, the Chief Fire Officer has commissioned a joint collaboration with Huddersfield University to review our organisational culture. The review will be extensive. It will be over a year-long period, and from that we will develop a behavioural and leadership charter, which will be formed with academic rigour, and will also produce a toolkit to deliver any of the proposed changes. It was really important as a strategic leadership team that we wanted to step away from this at the implementation stage, and we want this to come from staff with the guidance and advice from universities, so they will steer the response and what the final product will look like. But as a strategic leadership team, we will be responsible for implementing change once they have got to the point where we do have that behavioural and leadership charter.
So, Damien, can I just ask, does the service, can it wait for a year before the university comes back for this?
We are doing lots of activities, so all our activity with regards to equality, diversity and inclusion continues to go on. All our work with the networks across the organisation continues to progress. We're doing a considerable amount of work currently around lived experiences. So activity and progress continues. This framework for change is just capturing it. And I think the real benefit, what we're seeing in North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue over potentially what we've seen in other services where it's a peer review in other services, this will have that academic rigour behind it, and we will have that toolkit and action plan to make significant changes over the coming years.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring Matt in? I think you want to contribute.
Yes, please, yeah. Commissioner. Apologies, it appears to have got a problem with my camera, but luckily it's paused on a relatively decent picture. It was just to bring in some of the additional work, particularly around culture. And I know we've discussed this on numerous occasions, but as a senior leadership team, we are committed and are absolutely on the same page with regards to what we're trying to achieve, and that is to make sure that we provide the right culture in the organisation for the right behaviours to happen. We are not leaving any stone unturned. We're about how we can get better now. So it's about bringing numerous different work streams together so that we can all work to creating a better environment within the fire and rescue service. I'm sure you've seen there have been numerous public consultations out recently around culture. We've made sure that we are front and centre in all of those, but rest assured that we're doing everything that we possibly can to change the culture, both in the fire service and within North Yorkshire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will now hand over to Group Manager Long that will go through the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Ewan.
All right, I'll move on to things which are more centred around the RRM. So the community risk profile is a document which shows us the risk within North Yorkshire from fire, road and water, and a new version of it was created prior to the RRM. Once we had that in place, we told us following versus our aims under the care principles, and these are the things it showed essentially. So we had to our range of prevention activities, and so most of our prevention activity is undertaken by operational crews who are based in our urban areas, and they're also the people who have the quickest response times to incidents. So this left our more rural areas being impacted by both support from prevention and a slower response to incidents, and a change in the model was required to make it a more equitable service. Our early intervention activity, we recognise we wanted that to increase. Essentially, it's better to provide support to people early rather than that support coming in once an adverse event has highlighted the need. So, for example, providing support to people in the early stages of dementia to enable them to remain safely in their home for longer rather than it being an incident which highlights the need for such support. And that's sort of best achieved by working with partners to share information and highlight individuals.
Yeah, Ewan, can I just stop you a moment, please? Because I think the slides need to move on because we've still got framework for change up here. And unfortunately, you're just cutting out a bit as well.
All right. Has that updated it?
No, it hasn't. We're still on framework for change.
I'll stop sharing and I'll share again then.
Thank you.
Has this come through?
Yes, we're on framework for change. There we go. We're on the community risk profile gap analysis.
Excellent. Yeah, that's where I wanted to be. I will continue. So yes, I was just mentioning about early intervention and making sure with the right people. Our risk from fire within North Yorkshire is relatively low. So the risk levels that we understand are relative to North Yorkshire, but if you were to compare our risk to some of our neighbours, for example, you'd see that North Yorkshire is a safe place. Our road and water is a significant challenge due to the size of the county and the road network. So a lot of these are in remote places, and the types of roads that we have in the county make them potentially more risky. And this also highlighted an under-provision of specialist water rescue response within the Craven area. It highlighted the fact that our response model is based on old data and a new model to improve the resilience and the response times in relation to incident within North Yorkshire and the incident types that North Yorkshire receives was required. And also that we want to provide a standard against which we can be measured for responding to incidents. And due to the desire, I suppose, to provide an honest picture of performance within North Yorkshire, it was felt that the best way forward is to measure ourselves against standards demonstrating that we're providing the most effective resources safely and in the quickest time. And once we've built a better picture of what that looks like, we can then move on to providing a set of figures against which we can be measured. And all of this required a redesign of service provision. So within prevention, spoke about needing to provide a more equitable prevention services. So we have implemented a new structure for prevention and protection, which delivers more to the public and the vulnerable in the right areas. It provides more expertise to provide service delivery, support and guidance, along with more specialist roles. A new head of prevention role has been created, which has allowed a dedicated head of protection to be created as well, rather than the two roles being combined into one. We've created some grey book, which is operational roles to support operational staff in undertaking prevention activity. The early intervention, health and partnership manager roles have just recently been appointed to, along with lead community safety officer roles to support our current CSOs, and which, as Damien said earlier, will enhance the safeguarding provision within North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. The Public Safety Service has moved to business as usual, as laid out in your decision notice in 02/2024. So that team now includes a head of function, it's a prevention team, a station manager, 3 watch managers, 2 crew, 2 lead community safety officers, 6 CSOs, a youth engagement and schools manager, partnership manager, and safeguarding manager. As far as sort of our current and where we're going in the future with our prevention, so we've completed the established structure. A new and updated community risk profile will be published in the near future, which uses the latest NFCC, so that's National Fire Chiefs Council methodology, to determine the risk from accidental dwelling fires and the run work in North Yorkshire. And this work has been carried out with a company called ORH, who are a UK firm, but who also work with emergency services internationally. And they were the people that were instrumental in creating the methodology with the NFCC. So we've procured Mosaic data set in collaboration with North Yorkshire Police. And again, working with ORH, we've been able to use this data to understand where our residents who are most vulnerable from accidental dwelling fires are located at a household level. And this will allow us to make contact with them and provide early support and guidance. And then using the Mosaic data and referrals from partners, like Damien mentioned in his pack earlier, we're setting more ambitious targets for carrying out our home fire safety visits. And those are going to be set and monitored through our new station level tactical plans and dashboard data. Session was concerned, we recognised that we needed to increase our protection capability. So currently most of our protection activity is undertaken by whole-time firefighters, and again mainly in the more urban areas because that's where our whole-time fire stations are located. And so we recognised we needed to improve our offer, as it were, across the board. And to do that, we needed to sort of build a more focused approach to our interventions, ensuring that we're working with those businesses who need it most, and therefore sort of creating a safer environment for our residents and visitors. Our protection team has grown by 5 people, and we've invested in additional equipment such as virtual reality headsets to support training being carried out in hypothetical, more risky scenarios. And we want to sort of be able to maintain these recent enhancements. And again, like Damien mentioned before, our increased activity through our protection work has highlighted to us more, or has given us better information, I should say, about where some of our risks are in the county, which is then feeding into our SSRI, site-specific risk information, for our operational crews. So as far as where we are currently and into the future with protection, I beg your pardon. So as part of the RM, we said we reduce our attendance at automatic fire alarms. And again, sort of following on from what Damien said, really good engagement's been carried out with businesses. We no longer respond to non-sleeping risk premises throughout the day, and that has seen a reduction in our overall number of automatic fire alarms that we attend. We've rolled out training to staff through the driver training element about responding to automatic fire alarms on blue lights, using the current response principles around making sure we get there as quickly but as safely as possible. And that reduction in AFAs we've attended has freed up crews to carry out more beneficial activities or to remain available for critical incidents. And like around the question you raised earlier, as we said, that so an agreed approach to charging regionally has been met. However, we haven't had to resort to that yet because we'll be moving through the steps, and it's that engagement with businesses prior to once we get there. So once, again, the National Fire Chiefs Council are working on a methodology for risk-based inspection programmes, and once that is in place, we will move from our current risk-based inspection programme towards a new NFCC methodology, which will ensure that we're reaching the premises which will benefit communities most. And our current operational based protection activity is carried out by supervisory managers who hold a recognised level 3 qualification in fire safety. So we're introducing a new level 2 qualification, which has recently been approved by the awarding body, and that will be going out to other members of staff who will then be able to better support those who are level 3 qualified officers. And the idea behind this is it's just going to allow us to maintain our capacity as sort of demand grows, potentially through new legislation requirements and so forth. So as I mentioned before, we highlighted a gap where we had a lack of specialist water rescue response in the Craven area. So just to be clear, that all of our firefighters are trained to deal with water rescue incidents, but some of them receive enhanced training and equipment to respond to more complex water rescue incidents. So we had 5 specialist water rescue teams located across the service area who can enter fast flowing water to rescue people. And with the addition of Skipton, we now have 6. Part of the reason we're looking at that was because over the sort of 5 years leading into this, when we looked at it, we had 218 life risk water incidents, and almost 20% of those occurred in the Craven area, which is mostly in the Skipton district, as it were. And the nearest specialist water rescue team to Craven at that time was Ripon, which was around 45 minutes away from Skipton, or potentially up to over an hour onto the western end of Craven. And that absence of the addressed through that introduction. And
Ewan, sorry to stop you. You just broke up a little bit then. Could you just repeat that last bit, please?
Yeah, so I was just saying, so that the absence of the dedicated water risk capability in the Craven area represented a significant gap, which has now been addressed. And also through the modelling work which we've recently undertaken with ORH, they've confirmed the significant benefit of having that water rescue asset in the North Yorkshire as a whole.
That's really positive, because I'm going to ask you a question about that. So that's good to see that it was the right decision.
Yeah, no, it's quite clearly it was definitely that they're very clear in the benefit that's provided. And if we were to reduce, just to go off, if we were to reduce further for any reason, or if we were starting from scratch, then actually Craven would be an early station that we would look to implement if we were starting from 0. So
okay, thank you.
We are moving on with procuring new breathing apparatus sets. So North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, we have led in a collaborative procurement with Humberside for the full replacement of breathing apparatus equipment for both services. This is a significant investment in our staff and in our equipment, and represents around about £1.7 million for North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service to provide modern and state-of-the-art respiratory protective equipment for firefighters, which will include new breathing apparatus sets, a new communication system to go with it, and for the first time within North Yorkshire as well, the introduction of a telemetry system, which is a communication system whereby the breathing apparatus sets communicate directly with the board on the outside of the building to update those, the commanders and the people looking after the welfare of the crews inside the building on how hard they're working, the amount of air they've got left in their cylinders and so forth. So this procurement process is nearing completion. A preferred supplier has been identified and contracts have been signed, but we're currently in the cooling off period. So an announcement of the preferred supplier and the type of sets which will be coming into service will be made shortly once that period ends.
Ewan, can I ask a question on that? So I was absolutely delighted to be able to put that investment through, but for the telemetry, are other services using telemetry? Is it quite widely used?
Yes, so many of the services, I would say, have been using telemetry for quite some time. It is widely used, and it's a recognised benefit for the safety of the staff inside. And like I say, it really improves that monitoring and enables the staff to sort of possibly concentrate more on what they're doing inside the building, and the staff outside to sort of monitor their well-being and highlight any issues that may be an obvious example.
Thank you.
Okay, so just moving on to the on-call futures. Again, we've touched on this nationally, and Damien's spoken about where we've been. So the on-call model is under strain nationally. There's, I suppose, multiple factors feeding into that: changing population dynamics and working practices outside of fire and rescue services. It means that it's not as easy to recruit and retain on-call firefighters as it was previously. And as we've said, there's sort of multiple work streams looking at this. So within North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, we've appointed a station manager on a temporary contract to look to see how we can support our current on-call staff and make it a more attractive option for people to join. So around 18 months ago, we introduced a mobile phone application, which means that our on-call staff can make themselves available for fire calls from their personal devices, rather than having to attend the station and log onto a computer to enable them to do so. And this is something that's been really well received, and we're looking to develop that app in the future to provide additional functionality. Through that as well, we've removed the requirement for staff to submit weekly availability forms, which has reduced the administrative burden on themselves. Looking in terms of employer recognition within the workplaces, so as a means of sort of thanking and recognising employers who release staff to attend fire calls and training, some of this has been implemented. So the Christmas cards thanking them were sent out, and plaques which they can use to display their relationship, if you want, with North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service are in the process of being made, so that these employers can share their sort of commitment to their local communities by the fact they release staff to attend emergencies. The on-call station manager holds regular sessions with the on-call crews, generally speaking via Teams or through proxies through his on-call watch managers, to keep them updated with progress and to seek feedback on possible future work. So some of the other sort of things he's done is things around creating an on-call impact assessment, which is essentially a document for all staff to go through if we're implementing something, for example, a training course, to ensure that the needs of the on-call are being met and recognised as we go through that. Using the same Mosaic data set, and again, we've spoken about this already, we're able to gain a better understanding of our communities, where our on-call fire stations are based, and look to see where there are opportunities for ensuring that we're attracting sort of a representative workforce who represent those sort of diverse communities they're in. There's specific campaigns have successfully recruited to certain areas where we've targeted areas such as Huntington, which we said we would concentrate on. We've reformed the recruitment pathway, which ensures that we're taking applicants through as efficiently as possible. And there are some locations now where we have a number of applicants, means that we're having to introduce waiting lists. So moving on to the response principles. So the monitoring of the response principles is underway, and this is being reported through service delivery. And off the back of this, in sort of building this information, we will be consulting the public in the sort of future on a set of response standards, which will lay out clear performance targets against which we can be measured. So we've changed Huntington to an on-call fire station. So we've retained the on-call fire engine there, and we've removed the whole-time 24-hour shift engine. We've undertaken a successful recruitment campaign, which means we have new starters in the process of application and waiting to attend a Safe to Ride course to support Huntington availability. Additional fire safety work was carried out in the area, where we used a risk-based approach to reduce vulnerability within the Huntington area, and all of the whole-time staff have relocated to their preferred locations, and positive engagement between management and workforce meant that this was achieved with minimal disruption. The aerial ladder platform is now located at Acomb, and a training programme implemented to ensure that all staff are competent in its use. And the funds which are being released from the reduction of the operational staff at Huntington has been ploughed back into the prevention and also into the on-call service. So looking to the future, work's currently underway, engaging with rep bodies, looking at the changes in Harrogate, and there's a number of proposals which are being discussed about how best to achieve the change. And these proposed changes have been designed to align with the workforce planning proposals and a new intake of whole-time firefighters, some of whom will be coming onto stations in the coming weeks, and others who will be starting a 3-month training process at the training centre at Easingwold. And like mentioned in the decision notice, once the Harrogate changes have been agreed and implemented, then further evaluation will take place to assess the impact on Scarborough.
Mm. Ewan, a couple of questions on Huntington.
Yeah.
So I am really pleased to hear that you've managed to recruit some new on-call firefighters recently. So thank you very much to the new joiners and their employers, and to the service for proactively recruiting to Huntington. So can you tell me off the top of your head how many have joined, and what's the current availability in Huntington? And another question is, are the service monitoring the response times for Huntington area since the station was changed to on-call?
Yeah, so yes, we are monitoring response times, and we have not seen a significant increase in them. In fact, potentially even a slight decrease, but we have to, that also reflects the fact that actually the station will be attending fewer incidents, because in those sort of boundary areas, for example, where previously York, Huntington may have been faster to an incident than the York crew by 30 seconds or even 5 seconds, the mobilising system would have proposed Huntington. So whereas now, because there will be a natural extended turn-in time for the staff because they are on call, it will instead propose that York appliance to go. So it may mean an increase of a few seconds here or there. And what that does in effect is it shrinks their turnout area down. So the station as a whole is attending fewer incidents than it was previously. Also, tied into all of this is many of our quickest response incidents are automatic fire alarms, because the bulk of those happen in and around our whole time area. So as we reduce the number of automatic fire alarms we're attending, we will see an overall increase in our attendance times. It doesn't mean that those risk critical incidents are taking us any longer to get to. It's just that we are attending fewer of those easy to reach, if you wish, non-critical automatic fire alarms.
So can I just ask a question of Matt, actually? So the whole time firefighters that were transferred to the stations of their choices, are many of them in and around the York stations?
Predominantly, Commissioner, yes, they are. And there was as we were trying to implement the change, it's a significant change for the service, but we also needed to understand that it was a significant people impact change as well. And as we try and, approach everything from a people-centered point of view, we made sure that any areas or any individuals that required relocating to areas within York, we could do that. And I think bar one, I think everybody was able to be placed in the positions that they wanted to be. So it was a positive impact on behalf of the service.
Thank you. Thanks, Ewan.
Okay. And just to move on to the last slide in terms of where we're going in the future. So as mentioned, we contracted ORH to undertake analysis of North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Services risk and demand. That report will feed into updating the community risk profile for North Yorkshire using the full NFCC methodology and including the RTC risk analysis, again using the latest NFCC approach. And this work shows us where the demand is the highest and how we can make the best use of resources to ensure the fastest emergency response. And all of this will feed into a new fire cover model and also a response standard, which we'll be looking to implement in the near future. So that's it from me. I'll stop sharing my screen, and if there's any further questions.
So just one from me really now, Ewan, and that is about the future CRMP. Can you explain what a response standard is for those that are viewing, and also how introducing one will benefit the public of York and North Yorkshire?
So community risk, which is our overall community risk management plan, will lay out how we are going to deliver the services as required from us within the fire and rescue plan. And our response standard will be where our offer to the public, if it, as it were, will be that we will look to attend incidents in a given time frame. There is no nationally agreed standard for what that looks like. There is no nationally agreed figure for what that looks like. And it is up to every single service to come up with their own level that they wish to make as that offer. So, and this was partly why the undertaking the response principles piece of work was important in the first place, for us to understand what a appropriate level of response will be within North Yorkshire. So once we have the final report from ORH has only recently been received, once we've gone through that and we've double check with them any questions we have and so forth. We can go through that and come up with a set of figures, which we can then sort of explain the reasons why we've set it out at that, and come out to the public to see if they agree with that or not, and take that going forward. Once we have those agreed, it will then be very clear in this sort of meeting where we're able to sort of demonstrate whether or not we are achieving those times, and the direction of travel as to whether or not we are improving or alternatively.
So the new risk and resource model that ORH are contributing towards will be really for the Mayor to put forward and consult on with yourselves as well, in conjunction with TU. So that's very exciting times for the service going forward. So thank you very much, you and Damien, for that. I don't think there's any further questions, so I'll move on. Right, we're going to move to the spotlight section. So this is about speed data logging. So North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, in their road safety role, undertakes speed data logging to assess the speed on some roads in response to public requests. This forms part of the speed management protocol that is in place for the Road Safety Partnership. And I understand that you have had to pause the deployment of the speed data loggers until you can ensure that staff have the right training and personal protective equipment to do this safely. So I also believe that the Road Safety Partnership will be implementing a new approach to assessing the speeds on the roads via the use of some new software, which will lead to the potential reduction of the need for speed data loggers. And also make sure it's ensured that the deployment is targeted. So could you describe this new approach, please, and how should members of the public make a request for the assessment of speeding in their area if they have speed concerns?
Absolutely, Commissioner. I'll take that question on behalf of the Director of Prevention and Protection. So it's a really good question, and I think it's important to understand that the pause is down to a number of things, in particular, making sure that we have the right training for our staff, the right PPE to allow them to be safe. But in essence, speed data loggers are not currently routinely deployed by North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, but they do remain deployable in specific circumstances, and that's the key part. Because actually, in terms of the Road Safety Partnership, it's a collective approach to delivering what is speed management protocols. So the current protocol is currently being reviewed and amended to reflect the changes in technology. As everything moves on, so does technology. So a task and finish group, which has been coordinated by the Road Safety Partnership, has been put together, and that essentially is a tactical group. They'll be presenting what will be the updated and proposed version of the speed management protocol, and that will feed into the Strategic Road Partnership. I think that will be in June 2024 for approval. In terms of the second part of the question, Commissioner, around how do members of public raise concerns? So all speeding concerns should be raised and reported through North Yorkshire Police. That can be completed using what is a dedicated online form, which is on the Force website. And that's called Tell Us About a Speed Concern on their website as part of North Yorkshire. And obviously for individuals without access to, or who may want to, or have experiences barriers around internet, that information can also be shared via the Police 101 service. So lots of work, but in essence, it's about improving the offer around speed data loggers to make the roads within North Yorkshire safer in conjunction with the Road Safety Partnership.
Thanks very much, Matt. And also, if residents do have concerns about speeding, they can get in touch with their local, if you live in North Yorkshire, County Councillor, and if you live in York, York City Councillor as well. So thank you very much, Matt. Right, okay, let's move on to the inspection update, NYFRS inspection update. Can we come to Damien? Is it you that's doing this?
It is me again, Commissioner.
Okay.
I will just bring up the slides. If you can let me know that you can see them okay.
I can see them, thank you.
Thank you. So the first 4 slides, as always, are a comprehensive breakdown of the cause of concern recommendation action points. I will quickly go through these because I will move to the overarching view, and I can discuss the progress that we've made from that slide. So within those 4 slides, as you can see there, we have under the cause of concern, which is under the 2.1 question set within the report. That one refers to our enable review. We are still awaiting the final report from the enable review. It's imminent, and that will be reported through our meeting and governance structures, and we believe once that has been completed and we have a series of actions taken from that, we will be able to close down that recommendation in full. 3.2, recommendation 2, all of those areas regard to absence management, and there is a huge amount of work being undertaken by people services colleagues within Enable on all of the areas within absence management, and we believe once that work has finished, again imminently, we'll be able to close all of those actions. Recommendation 3, which shows another 4 recommendations that are on track but haven't been closed. These refer to the working time directive. We've actually purchased a third-party provided report that we can use to be able to track people's compliance with the working time directive. We're making a number of modifications to that and requesting updates to that programme. It's actually Group Manager Long that leads that activity, and he's in constant conversation with the provider to make sure that we've got that in place. Once we've got that report in place, we will report that through our workforce planning meeting, and we will do that over a 17-week period to look if anyone has come close to or exceeded the working time directive. So that's where we are with the causes of concern. Hopefully within the next couple of months, when you look at the dates on those, every one of those boxes should be blue and closed off. With regards to the AFIs, we continue to monitor progress against all of the AFIs, and senior responsible owners for each of the questions have provided evidence and information to why they believe each of the AFIs can be closed down. I've got experience of this 1.1, which is within the HMI report, understanding risk. I'm senior responsible owner for that one, and we have got lots of evidence and information to close down that area for improvement. We're just constantly working against these areas for improvement, so we haven't taken the same approach as cause of concerns, because we could close them down and show that they were closed, but there's still activity that will continue to be developed right up until the point of inspection and following inspection. Values and culture report. So we have made our return to HMI on all of the recommendations that were issued to Chief Fire Officers from the culture and values report that HMI produced. All of them have been completed, with the exception of recommendation 22. This is still progressing. Recommendation 22 is about 360-degree feedback for other leaders in the organisation. We undertook 360-degree feedback for the strategic leadership team. This is about broadening it out to other leaders in the organisation. I've had a meeting this week to progress that even further with people services, but we're looking for a cost-effective way of introducing that into the service, but have given our written commitment to HMI that we certainly will be implementing 360 across all leaders in the organisation. I will briefly talk about recommendation 4, because I'm sure you're wondering why that one's red when all of the others are white, but it will come on to that on the next slide. So part of the work that HMI have been doing is with regards to all of the recommendations, if they have any further questions or want any supplementary evidence, they're writing out to services for further evidence to be submitted. We had one of these for recommendation 4, which is about handling of concerns and making sure that people are kept well informed throughout the handling of any concerns. That's not to say this will be our only one. It appears that HMI are looking at them recommendation by recommendation rather than they've looked at North Yorkshire's and we've got recommendation 4 and that's it. But we've had no indication that there's any more as yet. We have provided further information through the service liaison lead. We've provided lots of evidence on how we're addressing this concern, and we've not had a further request from HMI with regards to that recommendation. With regards to the timeline, obviously our inspection is due in January of next year. Probably for the first time in 15 months, we're starting to look forward instead of back and at our preparations for the new inspection. We've got this timeline so we can prepare through our data returns, our document returns, and also developing our strategic brief. One of the key areas of business that we're going to be doing is we're having open forums that are accessible for all the organisation, where we will be discussing a couple of the question sets. So the first one of those will be in June, where we will the Director for Emergency Response and Operational Training, Ben Ilsley, he will be getting, for a better term, cross-examined by the inspection team on how we respond to incidents and how we respond to major and multi-agency incidents. We believe this will give the opportunity for us to discuss all the activity that's gone in under each of the questions, all of the evidence that we've captured or any of the documents that we've updated, and that will allow people from across the organisation, our crews, to fully appreciate the amount of work that has been happening. One of the foreseen consequences of us narrowing down our cause of concern activity to senior responsible owners, you know, it certainly sped up the improvement journey that we needed, but we need to get that communication piece out now to the full organisation, so everybody has got that golden thread of all the improvement work that we've been doing. And as you can see on the right hand side there, we'll be covering all aspects of the inspection, talking through what activities have been done. We've also introduced a new assurance methodology into each of the question sets. This is something familiar to us through the Independent Audit Committee, where we get an assurance opinion about where we are for any audits that are undertaken. We're going to take that methodology into our HMI action planning. And what that's allowed us to do is, I will just move on, is to start assessing where we believe we are over the 11 questions. As you can see there, we have 3 areas that we've defined as reasonable assurance and 8 areas as partial assurance. Just to give, I'm saying assurance a lot, Commissioner, apologies. Just to give you some assurance, those gradings are at this stage through the work that we've done with the areas for improvement, the causes of concern and the culture and values recommendations. Those assessments do not include any of the wider activity, which there's lots of work that we've done against the characteristics of good. But I would expect in future assurance reports that we deliver that we will see some changes in the assurance ratings that have been given just by gathering that wider evidence, not just evidence against the causes of concern. And that completes the presentation. Do you have any further questions, Commissioner?
Well, it's just to say that, you know, obviously there's a huge amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, as we can see there for your next assessment. So I wish you well with that. I really support your approach to preparing for the next inspection as well in January 25. Is it correct that you're introducing check and challenge sessions with staff leads for each inspection theme to provide a level of confidence in meeting in the new the characteristics of good? And can you tell me how it's going?
Yes, so certainly that is what will be introduced in June. So the first one will be with Area Manager Ilsley around emergency response. It is something now that we are quite familiar with because we have introduced this check and challenge session with regards our corporate risk register, and we've also implemented it with regards to our internal audit tracking of risks. It does allow at times it allows those questions to be asked of individuals that have owned the area, and that's what we're hoping will happen with the HMI inspection. But what has come out of the other ones is it just does give that organisational understanding of the work that's happened. And as we know from undertaking these meetings, Commissioner, we know the amount of work that's happening, but is a firefighter at Robin Hood's Bay aware of all the activity that we've undertaken in certain areas? And that's why we wanted to open this out as wide as we possibly can for people to listen in, see the work that's happened, and to be able to ask questions of those senior responsible owners.
Thank you very much, Damien. Thank you. Right, I don't think there's any further questions there, so we'll move on to public questions. So Amanda, can you put the public question up, please? There we go. So it's a question from Mark from Gargrave, and it's about biomass storage. So on behalf of residents, I'd like to register our concern regarding the storage of several thousand tonnes of material which the Environment Agency has confirmed is fuel for a biomass boiler. And we believe there is no fire provision at the former Kelber Hill Farm site, which stands adjacent to the operational railway and Gargrave station, and there exists a significant risk to the environment from fire. So the questions are, what can the Chief Fire Officer do to address this risk? And can he confirm that the necessary licence being granted by North Yorkshire Council to authorise the use of this building for this purpose at this location? And in the event of the correct licence being in place, then shouldn't the fire service have been a statutory consultee in that process? And I believe we've got the Chief Fire Officer here with us now, or is it Matt, the Deputy, that's going to take this?
I'll take that one, Commissioner.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mark, for the question. There are a couple of points that we just want to raise. Firstly, that it's obviously it's our intent to make sure that the people of North Yorkshire are as safe as possible. Within that approach, we have a dedicated department which looks into issues particularly around storage, etc., through our fire standards approach. However, as you can imagine, it's very difficult for us to give a specific or prescriptive answer to a question that we only have on a question here. But what I can do is that we will take this away. We will pass it on to the relevant department, and if it's acceptable for you to share the address of Mark with us, then we will feed back to Mark independently to make sure that any concerns that Mark has are at least listened to appropriately. We can't make any promises, but we can actually refer everything back to Mark from a service point of view.
That's great. Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you. I think the Chief wants to come in, Jonathan.
So yes, thank you. Just to and thank you, Matt, for giving that comprehensive answer. Could I just, we are aware that, of course, members of the public do use this forum to ask those questions. I'd just like to once again offer the reassurance and also push people to our website. We have all our contact details up there for our prevention and protection team. So if there's anything where people feel there is a public risk or anything else, please do proactively contact us through the contact numbers and addresses, email addresses, etc. on there, and we'll respond as appropriate as we always do. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much. And I think we've only got one question today, so thank you. So moving on, so we're just finishing a bit earlier today, which is very unusual actually, but I would just like to say that this is my very last online public meeting for the Fire and Rescue Service in its entirety as well for public meetings. I'd really like to thank the Chief Fire Officer and everyone in the service that have compiled these reports. They take a lot of time to do, but they're really, really informative, and I hope those that are watching really feels that too. My thanks also to my office as well that really help in creating reports too, and Tamara in particular, who significantly improved these meetings for the content. So thank you very much, Tamara, too. So I really enjoy these meetings because it's so important that residents have their say and are able to directly ask the chiefs. So it's about including your voice too, which I really, really enjoy. And this is just part of the way that I scrutinise both the force and the service. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for taking part, and thank you for your questions. And I think the next meeting, I think, is in June. We'll put it up. I think it's June the 20th. So thanks everyone for watching. I think, Jonathan, you would like to come in and say something?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Just to, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that this is your last OPM. So on behalf of the service, thank you for your support through leadership, particularly in the way that you've supported us to obtain funding or improve our funding position for the service. Noting, of course, it has been an appropriate and robust challenge, but it's helped us drive forward what we've tried to do. So on behalf of the service, thank you and all the very best for the future. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Right, I shall close the meeting now, but have a lovely afternoon and thank you for watching.
Thank you.